Welcome to the Hospitality Maverick podcast with me, Michael Tinkster. We at Hospitality Mavericks are here to inspire leaders to create heart-centered and profitable businesses from the inside out, the kind that both employees and customers love and support. In this episode, I talk with Amy Ogden, the founder of The Collective in New York, and they help hospitality businesses getting matched with the best-in-class PR and brand agencies at no cost to them. Amy has more than 20 years of experience in hospitality within PR and branding and worked with some incredible companies over the years. Amy tells how the pandemic have impacted the New York hospitality market and how they are reopening and the learning she is observing within restaurants and hotels. She also tells a story about when she met Danny Meyer. Yes, you heard correct. The Danny Meyer in one of his restaurants and what she learned from that conversation. Amy also gives some stellar advice during the podcast when it comes to setting standards as a brand and much more. Grab headphones, notebook, and enjoy. Welcome to the Hospitality Maverick podcast. Today we are in the end of June. We have a guest from New York on the podcast today. We can't get around not talking about the pandemic, but more important, we're going to talk about how are you actually improving your storytelling and how are you actually going to be coming out of this on the other side and talk about your hospitality business maybe in a different way than you did before. And for this purpose, I have Amy as a guest, and welcome to the podcast, Amy.
Thank you for having me.
Is it early morning in you or is it a late morning now?
It's late morning here. It's almost 11 a.m. I'm an early riser, so I've been up for about 5 hours at this point.
Yeah, I got an email for you about 5 hours ago. I thought,
You
you're an
did.
early riser. I like to do that myself as well, as we already have talked about. So that's where stuff gets done, For people out there that, they heard about you in the intro, but who is Amy and what is it that you're up to? Because you're trying to do something new because you have had a lot of reflection during the pandemic. And actually, you've been launching a couple of things, but there's definitely a couple of things we're going to touch on today. I think that's very interesting and going to put a new angle on things. But I will let you tell it yourself.
Yeah, so a little bit about me. I am a 20-year veteran. I never know what word to use. I've spent 20 years as a global sales leader running PR, communications, and marketing agencies, working really on the agency side with luxury travel, hospitality, and lifestyle brands. And just like everyone else in the world, I was, put on pause in life when COVID hit. I do live in New York. I live in the heart of Manhattan. I live on the corner of the Friends building. I'm looking at the building right now through my window. I've lived here for 4 years. I moved in and I said, yeah, I live across from the Friends building. She goes, oh my gosh, you're ugly naked guy. I was like, oh my gosh. It's funny, but yeah. So I'm in ground zero of what's going on in the world with COVID and coronavirus and quarantine. I posted a story on LinkedIn yesterday. I'm at 100 days of quarantine. And for those who have not had the experience of a New York apartment, unless you're a Kardashian, our apartments are very small. Even the nicest apartments in New York are not spacious. And so 100 days in a small New York apartment is a pretty wild ride. I also got a puppy the week of quarantine. That was planned. I had planned on getting her for months. It just happened that I got her in quarantine. So it has been an adventure, to say the least. But coming from 20 years in the agency space, working with hospitality, travel, and lifestyle brands, this gave me a lot of time to reflect. This gave me a lot of quiet and a lot of headspace and a lot of calendar space to really look at brands in the middle of this, but then also on the other side of this, and to really reflect on how brands have been telling their stories, how they're telling them today, and what it's going to look like in the future.
And I guess that, this is the only time in the hospitality industry that has been so much time to think. If you look at New York, definitely, it's been looking from the outside. It's been tough all around the globe, but you say it's a ground zero for where it really happened. A lot of people looked at New York and thought that's really bad. What is the biggest self-reflection you've done? And maybe there's an industry reflection as well within there.
It's a really good question. I think, self-reflection is how are we spending the precious minutes of our lives. I really believe that we're just moving too fast. We've all been moving too fast. And to be given this gift. I call this permission to pause, to really be given permission to pause is a beautiful thing. And I don't want to lose that. I really don't want to lose that on the other side of this. We've used the word essential a lot, and I really love that. What is essential, right? What is essential in our lives and how we spend our precious hours, in how we run our business? I think we've gotten really good at adding, but we haven't gotten very good at taking things away, or really looking at things and going, does this really matter? Does this make me happier? Is it impactful? Is it effective? So then looking at our brands the same way, I think, we've been on a high. We are at a 10-year bull market, been a ladder, right? Up and higher and up and higher and up and more. For the first time for many of us, this is the first time we've been pushed back, pushed down, held back, had less. As a business and a human, you just keep adding. You become almost this like energy hoarder where you're just hoarding and you're packing it all in, right? One more meeting, one more call, one more thing to do. And before you know it, you've hoarded and filled your energetic room with things that maybe don't even matter to your brand or to you as a person. And so having this permission to pause, having this opportunity to take a really deep breath and say, what is essential? And what am I going to choose to bring back in to my business, my brand, or my life on the other side of this? That's a really big question to ask. And I think the other thing that I think is very important during this is we're not going into a post-COVID world. We're going into a world with coronavirus. There is a long runway here. And so I don't want brands to look at this as before and after. I think we have a before, we're going to have a really long during, and we're going to have an after. And so we're headed into the during. And that also is a mind shift and energetic shift that is important for a lot of us to really sit on and think on.
In all this, you've been launching something called the Collective. Can you tell a bit more about what the Collective is all about and how it actually will support this mind shift that is needed? Everybody needs to change. Business is not going to be done as it was before. Everything is up in the air. You almost have I've talked with a couple of people, and you start to get this feel. People talk about this blank sheet of paper in front of you. You can rewrite your own journey, but also your business journey right now. You have permission to do that, which you normally wouldn't have.
So true. I just keep landing on this word permission. I think not that we needed permission, but we've been granted it whether we like it or not. Permission to pause, permission to reassess, permission to break old models of how we did things. And that's really where the collective comes in. I've created the collective to create a solution in a space that needs it. Decades of experience in the agency world really has revealed a disconnect in the space. On one side, you've got brands that need best in class agencies to market, innovate, communicate, and grow. And then on the other side, you've got these amazing agencies that want to showcase their incredible work with top brands as their clients. And that's really where the collective comes in. I think a good way to think of me is like a matchmaker, right? Travel, real estate, lifestyle, and hospitality brands. They work with me to increase their revenue and execute their growth strategies by matching them with my group of vetted agencies and experts. And these are agencies and experts in areas like digital marketing, web, paid search, PR, social media, ambassador marketing, creative, branding. And this is where the magic really comes in. Oftentimes, when a brand needs an agency or an expert, and brands are going to need them more than ever because you're not going to have a dollar to waste. So you need to make sure every dollar you spend is spent with a specialist that is like best in class and can zero in exactly on the activation you need to get the result you want, right? In the past, when a brand needed an agency or an expert, I saw this by being on the agency side for decades. Brands would often Google and like ask a friend. It's hard to know exactly where to go or where to start. And I saw this happening on the brand side. And then on the agency side, you've got these amazing world-class agencies that are so good at what they do, but finding clients for agencies is actually surprisingly tricky because as an agency, if you reach out to targeted potential clients, it never seems to be the right time. They're under contract. They're working with your competitor, then that gets awkward. Like there's just a lot of eggshell walking on the agency side when it comes to partnering with brands they really want to work with. This is where I can come in because I'm really taking the time. I've already have years under my belt of knowing what agencies and experts deliver on their work. So I spend the time, I do the vetting, I have the relationships, and I know who delivers. So when a hospitality brand comes to me and I go, "Hey, Amy, we really need a new digital marketing agency," I get the details. Tell me more about what you're looking for. I really make sure I'm clear on their goals. And then I look at my collective and I go, okay, based on what this hospitality brand is looking for, I've got a couple of digital marketing agencies within my collective. I've vetted them. I know they're good. I know they deliver. I'll go ahead and match them up. It's that simple. And the brand, the hospitality brand, they never pay me a penny. This is a service that I offer at no cost to the brand. I represent the agencies, but again, these are best in class. I fully vetted them and I'm willing to put my name next to theirs. It's really clear, it's really smart, and it works.
It's always the challenge when you want to find out, do I like them, do I know them, do I trust them, when you want to get an expert on board. How would you work to ensure that quality ensure that? Because I guess your business is going to be very reliable on that. You make sure that when you hand it over, it's in a good nick to protect yourself, but also the operator, as you say, that every penny they spend in the new world, it's going to be more precious than ever.
Absolutely. There's two sides to this, right? Think of it like a hotel with a concierge, right? So if you've got a hotel with a concierge, it is the concierge's job to have visited every museum, eaten at every restaurant. Like, this is no different. This is me saying, you don't have the time to do the homework and make sure that you spend your precious vacation hours at the best places. I've taken the time, I've done the homework. I'm going to tell you what I think you would really enjoy based on my experience, right? So, first of all, you've got a bit of the trust me factor, but that's very valid. I have spent 20 years in this industry. I'm a global leader in what I do. I think I've earned the right to say, trust me. I'm not coming out of nowhere with this. But then also, and what I'm super excited about, this is going to take some time because I am just now launching this officially as the collective. But there's also going to be data incorporated into this. As much as the trust me factor is important, I also really believe in the power of data. When I do make a match between, say, a hospitality brand and one of my agencies within the collective, at the 3-month, 6-month, and 1-year marks, I'm going to ask each of them to fill out a quick report card on the other. It's important to me that I'm making good matches, right? And the only way to really know that is to get feedback along the way. So over time, not only am I going to have the proven trust me factor of I've matched, several brands with this agency, they've always been happy, but I'm actually going to have numbers and data to back it up.
It's early days of coming or getting into the during phase that we actually start to operate. We are not in lockdown. We are maybe starting to lift restrictions around the world. We need, as you said, we need to find out how we do things. You're going to be very careful about how you spend your money. Why it's important that you keep on doing the storytelling because and standing out right now. I guess that it's all about keeping your cost low as a brand.
It really is. And man, storytelling has never been more important, Michael. I believe this so wholeheartedly. Consumers, travelers, diners, anyone who would interact with your brand, they really need to hear from you right now. And they need information and they also want to feel really secure and confident. So that's your job as a brand is to not go quiet, not go dark, be a place for information. So, certainly in Manhattan, I don't want to see a pretty plate of pasta right now. I want details. I want to know we're open for outdoor service. Here's how you book. For the first time, I'm going to go to dinner on Saturday night. This will be the first time in 3.5 months that I have had a meal out, which is mind boggling. I was actually kind of frustrated, to be honest with you, because there are a few restaurants that I would really like to go to. I went to their Instagram. I went onto Resy, which is a really popular app here, and no place just clearly said, okay, we're open for outdoor dining. We have X number of tables. Here's how you get on a wait list or reserve. Be informational, first of all. People don't need long, beautiful stories. They need facts and details. How do I book the hotel room? How many people can I bring to a dinner? Do I wear a mask? All the details. So first and foremost is be a place for just facts, details, and information so that people feel confident booking or engaging with your brand in any way. Same with purchasing, is it delivery only? Is it pickup? How do I do pickup? Is there a fee for delivery? Who do you partner with? In the travel and hospitality space, also painting a picture of what that's going to look like now. It's one thing to know that I can book a room at a hotel as of this date, and here's how I book, but also tell me what my stay is going to look like now, because it's not only important that guests know how to book, but also that you can paint a picture of their stay. And so, one of my directives with brands when it comes to all things they do, but especially social media, is you can educate or you can entertain. And I think right now, really dancing between those two as a brand with all of your messaging, you need to educate and then weave in the storytelling and the entertaining in between to keep telling that story of what this looks like today. And again, we're in the during. So, what does this look like in the during for all of us?
I had a really interesting conversation lately. They talked about that everybody needs to have different level of safety, because what you're talking about is the practicality, because we're going to be very much on, is this a safe place to go? How is this going to work when I arrive? And what do I need to do? They have enough uncertainty. So when they have to make this big, big decision of going out for dinner, you really have to feel that I'm in safe hands before you arrive. So it's not only what's happened inside the restaurant, it's how you communicate, how your booking is happening, how it looks when you come to the front door, how is that controlled, and all those things. And I guess that Maslow's hierarchy of needs has suddenly gone down to the very, very bottom of them, or the first step of safety, physical safety and mentally safety. And I guess we all have different levels of when we feel safe in that. And I think that's what you need to think about in this steering phase.
It really is. And just not missing the practical too. I noticed something last night that I wasn't a big fan of, because I work in hospitality and I think that there's so much clarity that can be had. And something that happened last night. So as I said, I live in the heart of Manhattan by the Friends Building in the West Village. So there are a lot of really beautiful little restaurants around me. And I was walking my dog for her last walk last night. It's like 9:30. And there's a restaurant around the corner from me at a couple of tables outside. One thing I have noticed, I want to pipe in on this because I thought this was interesting, and I think the hospitality industry should take note. I noticed last night, because yesterday was the first day that people could dine outside at tables at restaurants, I noticed a lot of people dining alone. And what that tells me is these are people who've been quarantined alone, but they're so tired of cooking. And all they wanted was for someone to pour them a glass of wine and hand them a plate of pasta, or. So, also to be aware, I think we're going to have a lot more solo diners for a little while, and to pay extra special attention to them. It is, as much as we all like to say we're confident eating alone. And of course, I'm sure many people are. It is still a little bit, sometimes you can feel a little isolated. We've all been isolated for so long. But that was just an awareness point that I saw last night that was significant. You rarely see someone dining alone at a table outside of a restaurant. I saw several last night just in the few restaurants right around my apartment. It's 9:30 last night, and I'm walking down the dark street, and it's a beautiful neighborhood. I mean, it's lovely. And a young woman was dining alone at a restaurant outside. And I just happened to pass by at the moment when she was holding her credit card out and he was saying, "Oh no, this is cash only." And she's like, "Oh, is there an ATM nearby?" It is late at night, and I mean, this is a very safe neighborhood. This isn't about safety, but it's like, even at the most fundamental level, you need to be communicating lately. No one should eat a meal at your restaurant and not be crystal clear that it's cash only. That is, to me, it's rare for restaurants to be cash only, and it's perfectly fine, especially right now. Maybe that's something that some restaurants are doing to alleviate credit card fees. No problem, but no one should finish their meal and not know that. And when they sit down, it should be a verbal conversation that's had. By the way, just want to make sure we are cash only. If you want me to hold your table for a few minutes while you get cash, happy to do that. But I wanted to let you know now so you could enjoy your meal. So even just fundamentally, before this, we were moving fast and, business was flowing. It is a new day, and we can't bring an old brand and we can't bring old processes into a new world. Not just putting on a mask and wearing gloves and getting back to business, but remembering we've all been home for months. We might need to over communicate, re-communicate, and treat some of our interactions as new again, not just take things for granted or assume people know things.
That's a very interesting observation, because again, when you talk about marketing and how you're positioning yourself to these people that actually have a need, because I have a family. I would love to go to a restaurant, but it's not something I have a massive need for, because in a way it's fine to cook at home still, because I having a meal together with people around me. I see people every day, but I can imagine if you've been isolated in a flat in a big city. London, I think you will have in the UK, if you take it from the world I'm in right now, all big cities as massive opportunities, or even smaller regional cities where a lot of people has been on their own for this lockdown. They actually feel they just just that feel of getting out, as you say, and get that serve. I think that's a brilliant observation and a big opportunity if you're actually positioning yourself a bit for that. Also, I wouldn't enjoy sitting in a big group with my kids in a restaurant because just keeping them in control would be stressful enough with all the things that's going on. But another interesting thing I was thinking as you were talking about this coming back, and one of the things I observed, and I don't know if you see it in the same word, is that a lot of the business has done really well, both locally to me and what I've observed nationally and globally, is the brands that already had a story and they went out and told the world why they did with it. And the founder was in front of this. An example from New York is Danny Meyer, that's been very aggressive out talking in a positive, aggressive way about how they dealt with such a difficult situation when you put people first that you have to lay them off, maybe even. And we're very open about those things. And I think people are going to remember these things that when the founders of businesses have actually been outstanding in front of it. And what I've sometimes seen in hospitality is that they maybe hide a bit behind the brand instead of being in front of it. So what is your view on those businesses that's been really out doing storytelling during the lockdown and right now as founders?
Yeah, I mean, Danny Meyer is the gold standard to me in business leadership, hospitality leadership. I have a tremendous amount of respect for him. I'm a bit of a fangirl, actually. I've seen him speak at a couple of conferences here in New York, and I was at Polite Provisions one morning. That's one of his locations here in the city. It's a cute little breakfast spot, very small. I was there and he was there and it was packed. I mean, true, like it's just so good. And body to body, people in there trying to get to the register and order. And he was at the back of the room and he had his phone camera up and he was taking a picture of this packed room. And you know what I loved about that was with all of his success and, his I don't know if he still lives there, but his home on Gramercy Park and his global respect and being just so renowned in the space, he was still so excited to see his little breakfast place full of people. And, I walked up to him like the true fangirl I am. And I was like, "Are you Danny?" And he said, "Yeah." I said, "I'm such a fan." And we talked for a few minutes. I was trying to get him to actually, you're going to laugh. I was trying to get him to start a podcast. He had been on, it was either Gary Vee or James Altucher's podcast. I want to say it was James as a guest. This was like 2 or 3 years ago. And I had just started my podcast. I'd started my company's podcast. And so I said, "I just heard you on James Altucher's podcast. And you said you've considered starting one. You really should. It's very easy." And we talked about it for a while. Anyway, that's a side story, but he's just a down to earth stand up guy. The storytelling, again, just coming back to all of it, you can't say it enough. If you're just a logo and a menu, right? Or if you're just a logo and a room with a bed in it, you'll do fine. You won't go out of business, but you won't create the stories of people's lives. I look at the special places, the restaurants people propose at. They don't just propose at any restaurant, right? They propose at the one that they want to tell the story for years. They don't just honeymoon anywhere. They honeymoon at the hotel. They want to tell that story for years. So just constantly reminding yourself that this is not transactional. This is human. The meals people eat, the places they choose to spend their precious vacation time and dollars, that means something, and you can be as much a part of that story or as little a part of that story as you choose.
And I guess also in the new world we live now, we have created these savvy consumers. They really have time to reflect and study during lockdown all over the world. So, I can already see it now. I can hear it from people I know. They're starting asking questions about where's my food from? Why are they serving that food? Where are they getting the fish from? And all these kind of, just around food questions starting to happen. And how is the supermarket actually treating their staff? There's so many questions that's been asked. And actually, I'm actually think I'm going to go local instead because I know the owner. I can meet the owner and he's a nice guy and it seems like he cares in a way. And I think these stories, you have to tell these stories as a small or big operator. You need to tell those stories that you care because people are going to look for that now, I guess.
Never in history have we felt more connected. I think the number in the US is 119,000 people have died from COVID, and they died because a virus was passed in some way from one to another. That's energy, that's connection, right? In the worst way, right? Never have we realized how much we impact each other. Certainly with Black Lives Matter, I don't think Black Lives Matter would have happened if we all weren't so quiet and present because of COVID. I think we would have seen a really upsetting video and been like, "Wow, that's crazy. Anyway, gotta go, gotta get to this meeting, gotta go to brunch, gotta get to happy hour, gotta do this," right? But instead, we saw a very upsetting, horrific video, and we sat with it. And because of that, there has been an uprising, as there should be. And never have we realized just how phenomenally interconnected we are as humans. Racism is a pandemic, COVID is a pandemic, and a pandemic is just showing us just energetically how connected we are. I had a lot of thoughts during COVID of never in the history of the world has everyone been thinking about the same thing for so long. I would say 9/11 is probably the one time, or maybe the murder of JFK, a couple of moments in time where for a moment in time, everyone in the world was thinking about and talking about the same thing. But even that was for a shorter period, right? For months, the whole world has thought about and talked about one thing. Can you imagine if that same energy and that same human thread was talking about something positive, and what it would do? I mean, even the world is literally vibrating at a different level, because we don't have as much movement in the world of cars on the streets and things, people walking, things like that. So I think that this permission to pause, this moment in time, don't waste it. Never waste a good crisis. I hope we don't go back to normal. I hope we are all more awake and more aware and know what's essential. I hope we all revamp our business models, how we connect with our guests, how we connect with ourselves, what we choose to do, what we choose not to do, how we spend the precious moments of our lives. And as brands, why are you here? Use this moment to really say why. Don't take your old marketing plan and sprinkle in gloves and masks and the word post-COVID and move on. If you do that, then why did you even go through this?
It's super interesting, but I totally agree. Everybody has the opportunity to restart here. We all in the same boat, and this is the time now, because it's not in 6 months' time, and it's not enough just to sprinkle a bit of safety advice on your brand, and then you think that will be fine. I totally agree with you, and I think that you will quickly be found out. It will be quickly be shared. And I think people are also become a bit more raw and direct when it comes to sharing these stories, because, they want to make sure that, we're a bit more connected, everyone. So you feel a bit of responsibility to tell if what was standing on the tin didn't really come to real life when you started using the product or engage with the brand or whatever it happened. I think it's going to be brutal, but also it's going to be to the good for the consumer and the planet in the end. And it's super interesting as well to see that there's some company that really taking a big responsibility in this as well, because we all know that this is just one wave of challenge compared to climate change. And as you said, really hope that people have thought about things and really want to do things in a different way when we come out here, because the pandemic comes from human activities in the wrong way.
It sure does. Yeah. I mean, look, who do you want to be on the other side of this? You don't need a pandemic to have permission to pause, by the way. So you can adjust and choose who you are, what your business looks like, your place in the world as a company and as a leader on the other side of this. And the beauty of it is 5 minutes later, you can choose again. And 6 months later, you can choose again. We're not static. We're not carved in stone. So you don't need a pandemic to pause and reassess and determine what matters and what you want your place in the world to look like as a business, as an industry, as a leader, and as a human.
Faceless brands, they will really be challenged after this, but they still, in my world, they have a chance now to reconsider that. But you're right, a leader always has the responsibility to go in and actually ask those questions. That's the role of the leader, actually challenge the perceptions of our status quo. But right now we can all, maybe reset. How is your view on the future of this hospitality landscape? As you just said, was it yesterday that was the first day of opening up restaurants in New York, and thereby, in my world, the world is reopening in any city when that happens, because that's community and that's what we're all about, and that's what people have been hungering for, and thereby hotels and leisure and travel comes after that. But what is your view, if you had to look in a crystal ball? A bit of unfair question, but an interesting from if you look at from a New York point of view.
My view is so bright. I have been listening hard during the last 100 days, and I've had conversations with so many people. And the common thread that I hear over and over is, I just want to eat out at a restaurant. I just want to go on vacation. No one's like, oh, I just want another pair of shoes. Oh, I just want another handbag, right? Really, it's amazing that when everything was stripped away, We wanted to come together and we want to explore. And so I really believe that this pandemic and this quarantine has shown so many of us that our nature is to gather and explore. And so creating places to gather, to nourish, to explore and adventure, we are going to have a pent up desire and excitement about that. Doing it in the right way, of course, is super important. But I think the future is phenomenally bright. And I don't think you need to have teams in hazmat suits, Cloroxing handrails in the middle of lobbies on a 2 p.m. to show everyone it's clean. Certainly, there will be new guidelines that we'll all follow. I really feel like cleanliness in restaurants and hotels is going to be the parallel I keep kind of seeing in my mind is like farm to table. So, when farm to table first came out, so to speak, when the concept sort of gathered wind years ago, suddenly everyone was like, oh, we're farm to table. We're farm to, you couldn't look at any menu or talk to anyone about farm to table. And then James Altucher gets really great guests. And it might have been James, I think it was. He talked about his beginnings and his Korean background, really fascinating. That he came out with sort of an op-ed a couple years into the farm to table movement. And he was like, yeah, guys, no kidding. You better be. What are you getting your turnips from like 8 billion miles away? Like, I would hope you're farm to table. You're a good restaurant with fresh food. And then over time, farm to table just kind of became assumed. Like, well, I would hope my food is fresh and locally regionally sourced. And then it was listing the name of the farm and then the name of the cow and the name of the farmer and the woman who planted the seeds for the carrots. And like so I see cleanliness and safety following this very similar path. At first, it's going to be shouted from the rooftops, like signs everywhere. Hey, everyone, we're clean, we're safe, we disinfect every 3 hours, we never repurpose this, all the things. And then it's going to be like, we have X% alcohol in our whatever, like it's going to get like more detailed, like naming the farmer. And then it's just going to become expected. I expect that when I eat at a well-run restaurant, that the food is fresh and locally or regionally sourced, right? So I think that cleanliness and the standards and expectations in hotels and restaurants and retail stores, everywhere we go that's a public gathering place, is going to follow similar suit. It's going to be very in our face, and then they're going to even get more detailed so you feel really good about it. And then it's just going to become expected as a good retail location or restaurant or hotel that is just how you operate. So I think we'll see a very similar life cycle with cleanliness. I don't even know if that answered your question, but that was something that was really on my mind when we were talking today.
When you run a restaurant, as David Chang said, shouldn't you be, aware where your produce come from, and shouldn't it be the best quality possible you can provide? And it's these, obvious things that comes with hospitality, because hospitality is, in my world, I think Danny Meyer call it setting the table. I just call it setting a higher standard, and that's why you're in this, because you can set a higher standard every day. You're never done. In a way, it's a continuous journey. It's interesting when you're saying about this evolving around cleanliness and safety, because I actually, if I choose a place, I already tick that off. I don't need to do that. But again, I guess to bring people back, that you need to do that. But again, maybe it's almost going to be overdone. But it's an interesting thought you had there. I hadn't thought about it in that way. But yeah, you're right.
Yes, the bar is high. Here's the thing. This is the Hospitality Mavericks podcast. By choosing to be in hospitality, by choosing to work within the industry, either as a leader, CEO, a founder, a creator, a team member, agency, or an expert or a consultant, the bar is already high. There is no lower bar in hospitality. It is an industry that starts high. I think of hospitality like I would think of like a professional football player. You show up in shape. There is no out of shape, slow running professional football player, right? Like you show up in shape. The bar is already high. The best start at the beginning. And so with hospitality, I really believe that. I believe by choosing to be in hospitality, your floor is most people's ceiling and you go from there. So your baseline is most people's best day and you go from there. That's a standard. That's what's expected. I don't question it when I check into a hotel. Their floor is most industry ceiling. It is best in class. I don't question it when I dine at a restaurant. I don't question it when I go to a cocktail bar and enjoy a very fancy, expensive cocktail. Their floor is another industry's ceiling. Best in class is where we begin.
The way you explained that, I thought that, yeah, that's how we should think every day, with or without a COVID situation. Amy, yourself, because you've been through a bit of a journey, as you put up in the first of the podcast, like a lot of change. You're launching a lot of new things. How are you keeping yourself sane and positive and in balance? I'm not super happy about the word balance, but how you actually keep on moving in all this, because you could just sit down and give up, but you must do something really incredible to keep that kind of energy and focus you're having.
Thank you. Yeah, I would love to share what I do. And I'm going to be very honest and tactical here for your listeners. Bear in mind, I don't have children. And, I have so many friends at home with children. And that is, homeschooling and e learning and keeping them entertained and educated and excited and moving on top of everything. So, this is coming from, I will say, like the position of someone who has full control over her days and her time. So take this with a grain of salt if you're listening and rolling your eyes. Just pick one of these things, if even that's a good starter. But a couple of things I've done to be really centered, grounded, and clear during this. Number one, I cut out all alcohol when this happened. I always have been a very social drinker, 4 to 5 drinks a week on a big week, like not a big drinker, a couple nights out, couple drinks a night. I didn't realize until I stopped drinking how even a couple of drinks pulled me from working at 100% to working at 90%. And when COVID hit, I work in hospitality. I mean, I was right in the middle of the complete, fallout and free fall. I remember just thinking in one little moment of clarity, I said, there's not a lot I can control right now, but what I can control is how I feel. And one thing I know for sure is that drinking brings out anxiety in me and it pulls me back a little bit on energy and clarity. So if I can do one thing, I'm just going to not drink. Now, I thought that was going to be for 2 weeks. I thought we would be done with coronavirus 2 weeks later. So I did not know it would be 100 days of no drinking. I did drink on Cinco de Mayo. I had 2 margaritas and I immediately regretted it on 6 de Mayo. So I have also learned my lesson there. I will drink again, but during quarantine and during the launch of my companies, I've made the conscious decision to cut out all alcohol because for me, it just doesn't do me any favors. Weight gain and anxiety are my two big results from that. And because I am not as fit as I was at the beginning of this, my gym shut down and I love a gym. I really am struggling with home workouts and I have this puppy. So leaving her and working out outside wasn't as easy. I'm not doing as much fitness. So also just watching my diet was big. So with that, I am in bed by 10 or 10:30 every night, lights out. I'm up around 6 in the morning. I go for a long walk and then I do what I call the sacred six. So I reset the house. Resetting the house is, make the bed, wash the dishes, put the few things away, like make sure that because I am working at home, my home looks and feels like a nice place to be. And then from there, I drink a bulletproof coffee. I get bulletproof coffee from the Bulletproof brand. You can get it on Amazon. I like the mocha. It is coffee with grass-fed butter and MCT oil in it. So it's got a lot of healthy fats. It gets your brain going. You also have the caffeine, but it's hard to explain. Regular coffee, which I also do drink, kind of can make me jittery and make my heart race. But bulletproof coffee just gives me this beautiful, strong rise. So I drink some of that. I journal. And my journaling trick is that I start every journal entry with the words, if I was really being honest. I learned that from a coach named Amy Young, and it has absolutely changed the way I journal. And the most fascinating revelations have come out of that. So I journal starting with if I was really being honest. I've also learned about EFT tapping, and I do that for about 5 minutes. And then sometimes I'll also do a quick meditation. All of this takes 30 minutes at the most. It sounds like a lot, but it's really not. And when I do this, it takes me 30 minutes, but I easily add 2 to 3 hours of productivity and clarity to my day. So I look at it as the piggy bank, of investment in my day. So I call it the Sacred Six, and I start every morning with my 30 minutes of my Sacred Six. So anyone who's listening, you could even look at this and go, okay, I'm going to take 30 minutes each morning. And what are 6 things that I could do that would get my day started on a good start? That could be 10 minutes of stretching. That could be meditation. It could be breath work. I really like Wim Hof. YouTube is your best friend right now. All of this is free on YouTube. I do my EFT tapping videos from YouTube. I do my yoga from YouTube. I do my breath work from YouTube, meditations, everything. And then I really like the Waking Up app. It's with Dan Harris. And if you look at the fine print, they are offering 1 year of the Waking Up app, which is about $185 value. They offer it for free. Look at the fine print on the App Store. You just email them and they'll give you a code for 1 year free because Dan doesn't believe that if anyone can't afford meditation, that they should have to pay for it. So that's a gift from them to you. So if you're in a position where you don't have $185, but you really want a year of meditation, I highly recommend it. And it's their gift to you for free.
You have to try out different things. I have my own rituals as well, but I totally agree with you. I call it reset or getting priming, I call as well, getting the day started is very, very essential for having, productive time in these times because there's so much noise that wants to come into you and so much emotion. So the only thing you can do is to get yourself ready for every day. It's a bit like going in playing a high intensity elite sports game like an NBA game where you're pushing every day very hard. You're playing very high level. There's no time to be on your low game. You have to play your best game every day. And I think, what you talked about there is actually getting ready for that every day because then you can better manage the setbacks, which will be in this situation we're in now. There will be setbacks that's out of your control, but you'll be better at managing it because you're in the right energy state.
Absolutely. There's someone said once, like, if you don't think you have 10 minutes a day to meditate, then take 20. Like, you need more if you don't think you can do a little bit. It tells you that you need more. I think it was Coco Chanel. Her rule was right before you walk out the door, take off one piece of jewelry. Kind of the rule was always that every woman puts on just a little too much jewelry. So her rule was take off one piece right before you walk out the door. And so what I will also do is look at my day and my to-do list, and I'll take off one thing. There's always something that is just clutter. It's just extra and it's not necessary. Whether it's a call that I scheduled 3 weeks ago that just isn't effective at this point, not necessary, or if it's an errand that I thought I had to run, but I really don't need to, whatever. But take off one piece of jewelry. Look at your day and take off one thing. There's usually one thing you can take off and it's not going to impact anything except it's just going to give you maybe that half an hour that you need to do your sacred six in the morning.
Yeah, and I think it's also about, prioritizing, that as one of the things you need to do. It's one of the fundamentals. And I think there's a guy from the US I like a lot called Michael Jordan. I think everybody knows who that is, but he talks a lot about playing on your fundamentals instead of all the other things. Are you on top of your fundamentals every day? Have you done your rebound and your one pointers enough times, to be ready to move on? Your basic things in principle. So getting your foundation in place. I like that approach you have there. In the end of the podcast, we're getting there, Amy. I would like, a guest to say, what kind of 3 top advice would you give a leader in the industry right now, or any leader in the world of business they should go and reflect on or go doing? What is your 3 top advice right now? I know they can change in a week time, but from the knowledge we have today.
Set up your business with the assumption that we'll be on lockdown again in fall. So are you prepared? Dig the well before you're thirsty. Pretend like I am from the future. And I'm telling you right now that on November 23rd, we will go into another round of 60 days of lockdown. Just pretend like it's going to happen and act as if.
Yeah, very interesting. Other things?
We've talked so much throughout this podcast about it. Who do you want to be on the other side of this? What is your place in the industry? Throw out the rule book. Don't bring an old brand to a new world. My biggest worry is that a lot of hospitality leaders are going to try to take an old brand, an old way of working, an old business model, and jam it into a new world. Never have we ever been through a human revolution like this. Don't take this lightly. This isn't just a pause and a restart. This is a new world. And just like if you were dropped on Mars, you wouldn't just try to bring your Earth, brand to Mars. Start clean, get fresh, look at the new world we're in, the brand you have and the place you have in this world, adjust where needed, and look at this with fresh eyes. This isn't about 10% different. And I think that would be my biggest advice is almost pretend like you're starting again.
That's super, super interesting. Yep. I could be concerned about that some leaders out there would take their old model or approach the thing and try to shoehorn it into the new world. Because I've asked certain of the people I work with, so what is your plan if you have to close again? What do you mean? Lockdown happens again? Because there is already signs around the world, and in the US where you are, I saw the Florida had quite a setback again. There's an opportunity for us all that we have to do this again. How is your business ready for that at that point then? What have you done that is different to be more ready than you were last time?
Dig the well before you're thirsty. Dig the well before you're thirsty. Prepare now. Worst case, you're so prepared. Best case, you're prepared and like you ride it out. But like, your worst case is you prepared for something that didn't happen, but I can't see any preparation being a loss. And then also, man, eyes on the road. This is really interesting. A few weeks ago, consumers were actively responding to digital ads that talked about safety and we're in this together and, we're all in this together. They were very much responding to ads like that. So, there are these companies that do all this testing. Like within 3 days, those ads got almost no response. No one cared anymore. Now they wanted details. When do you open? What does this look like? Like with your digital campaigns, I mean, I've got what I think is one of the best digital marketing teams in the US. They're one of the best. They work on a month-to-month basis. 96% of clients they had 5 years ago are still with them. Here's why. They are so hungry. They have to prove every month that they're worth that retainer again, and they never take a break. Your ad strategy, your marketing strategy, your messaging should never take a break. You can't even create something and think that 2 weeks later it's still going to be relevant. Eyes on the road. You can't take your eyes off the road right now. Things are changing daily. So be in it, or have the right team whose sole job is to bob and weave and adjust and hit new marks every single day based on consumer behavior.
And that's an interesting approach as well, because it's like a muscle. Everything you do in business, all your systems and so on are like a muscle, and you need to be trained all the time and question, are we actually doing this as the highest standard? Again, coming back to standards. So amazing conversation, Amy. Thank you so much for having the time and coming on and sharing your thoughts and view on the world, and your great advice here in the end. I wish you all the power and luck and energy you need to succeed in your new normal, or the new world, or new paradigm, or whatever we call it. But I'm sure it's going to go well.
Thank you so much. I have never felt clearer or more excited about the future ahead and the unity of humanity. I'm here for it. I'm ready. I'm excited to be a part of it.
Thank you, Amy. What a great conversation about how you can utilize the power of storytelling as a brand in these times, as well as some great advice how to navigate the storm. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please give us a like, share, rate, or subscribe to one of our channels. If the subject around PR and branding interests you, I would recommend you also to visit our previous episode 12, Creating an Authentic Brand with Mark McCulloch. Thanks to Let's Talk Video Production for your support on the podcast. Tune in next time for another interview, and in the meantime, find out more about it and subscribe to our newsletter at hospitalitymavericks.com. Thanks for listening, and be Maverick.